6 things that you need to know about buying, eating, and storing apples. Hey, Sophie here. So I have just been to the farmer's market and it is apple season. So obviously fall is apple season. And I'm so excited because I look at these beautiful apples. And when I say beautiful, to me they're beautiful because they're imperfect. And to me, pretty much everything that's imperfect is beautiful, or way more beautiful than things that attempt to look or be perfect, and that goes across the board. But in terms of fruit, it really is the case, because you go to the grocery store, obviously, and fruits are selected for fruits that look perfect. They're all the same shape, they've got to be the same size, they've got to be the same color, they've got to kind of look the same, they've got to be uniform. And obviously a grocery store apple doesn't taste very good, not like these apples. So when I went to the market, they had a lot of different varieties of apples, which is really fun, tasting all those different varieties. But I just want to show you, look at these, like they were tiny, lots of really, and I love tiny apples, because sometimes I cut into an apple and I don't want to eat a massive great apple. Like that is a perfect snack size for me. That with a little bit of hummus, or, a tiny little bit of, almond butter or something, is just the most delicious snack, or some raw almonds. They had lots and lots of different colors, and the thing that I see on every single apple that I picked up was all these imperfections that this wouldn't pass on a grocery store, wouldn't even make it to the grocery store shelf. So and not only that, but these apples are absolutely delicious. So I just want to go over 6 important things that you need to know before buying and eating and storing your apples. I think this will be very, very useful for you. Okay, so number 1 is, where possible, try to buy your apples from a local farmer. Now, I know we don't all live near a local farmer, but you can Google, because in apple season, you might be surprised. There could be a farm that's not too far away. You can make a trip, an outing, an experience of it. Some farms even give you the opportunity to go help pick the apples, which can be a lot of fun. So if not, you can get a CSA box, you can get a farm box. There's a company called, there's various companies actually, Imperfect Produce, Ugly Produce, various online companies that actually take the fruits that would normally literally be wasted and sell them as imperfect produce. So best case scenario though is that you buy from a local farmer. So that probably would be either a CSA box, which means community supported agriculture, a farm box, a farm stand, or a farmer's market. And then when you get to the farmer's market, you really want to be sure and chat with the farmer. So I always make it my business to really get to know the farmers, because I want to make sure they really are. Where are they grown? How are they grown? How many varieties do they have? And you really want to make sure that they're organic and sustainable, and get them in a conversation about that, because sometimes at farmers markets there can be, it's not really, sometimes it's not organic at all, or local or sustainable. So you want to make sure. But assuming that you're buying apples that are in season, because that's the big giveaway, I think, for all fruit and vegetables at a farmer's market. There are some sellers at the farmer's market I go to, and they have sort of berries and all sorts of things year round, and I'm like, that's not what I'm going to be buying here. And then there are some organic stands, and I pretty much have got to know the farmers, and everything that they have is going to be seasonal, because that's what an organic farmer does. And so first is a local farmer, and eat in season. So super, super important. Now, another reason why eating in season is very important is that the average, you may not know this, but the average grocery store apple, those ones that you see that look like something out of a Snow White movie, all shiny and waxed and perfect looking, the average grocery store apple is 14 months old. 14 months. It is over a year old, because typically non-organic, conventional, and even some organic, to be honest with you, which is why number one point is eat when they're in season and from a local farmer. But so some even organic apples, right? You'll see those in some of the more organic grocery stores. And almost all conventional apples at the grocery store have this very, very long shelf life. So they are picked, they are sprayed with all kinds of different fungicides and pesticides and whatnot. Then they're waxed and then they're put into cold storage. Now, the problem with this is that being over a year in cold storage will completely alter the texture, the taste. Hello? I mean, the difference between this little apple, which is making my mouth water just thinking of biting into it, and something that I can find at the grocery store is night and day. Texture-wise, taste-wise, and nutrient profile, because obviously when any fruit or vegetable has been stored for over a year, it's losing nutrients. The minute you pick anything, the nutrients start to degrade. So 12 to 14 months, and a lot of the nutrients, the vitamin C, the potassium, etc., is not going to be in that apple. So that is really important, and that is point number one. Point number two is to try to buy organic, USDA organic, or, now remember, I've already said that even if it is USDA organic, still, it could have been in cold storage for a long, long time. But buying organic is very important, because the Environmental Working Group puts out every single year their Dirty Dozen list, which are the 12 most pesticided fruits and vegetables. And apples are always on that list. As long as I've been studying that list for the last 12 years, 15 years, apples are always there. And the Environmental Working Group have found that apples have an average of, I think it's 4, and that's really a minimum of 4, because that's the average pesticides in and on the apple. And when I say in, they're applied during the growing season. And then one of the main pesticides is actually a fungicide that is applied to stop the fruit from browning, right, or going bad, because these organic apples I've got here, they're not going to last that long, thankfully, because they do start browning. So this fungicide is and can be very deleterious to your health, to your liver, and to your kidneys. So you really don't want fruit that has fungicide on it. And then, of course, it's waxed and so on, going back to point number one. So you really want to make sure that your apples are organic so that you can avoid all of these pesticides and fungicides. Now, on a little side note, I will say that some organic growers that have the long cold storage, so you might find these apples at a big healthy grocery store and they're sold, you see them year round, right, the organic apples, right? They might also use a fungicide, right, because they have to keep the fruit, to stop it from browning, but it is a different kind. It's not the sort of synthetic fungicide that is used. They can't, if it's certified organic, that's used on non-organic. So just to sum up these first 2 points, because they're very important. 1, in season. 2, try and get from a reputable local farmer or farm stand or farm box. 2, try to make sure, whether you buy it from a local farmer or the grocery store, that it is organic. And even if it is organic, it might still have some wax and some fungicide on it if it's organic, but it won't be as deleterious as the kind of fungicide that is used in conventional farming. Okay, so those are the first 2 points. Let's see, point number 3 is you want to eat the skin of an apple, only, I should say, if the apple is organic. So obviously, if you're ever eating a non-organic apple, which I don't recommend, you definitely want to peel, because you've got the fungicide and the wax that's sealed in those fungicides on the skin. So get rid of the skin. But assuming that you are eating an organic apple, then try to keep the skin on, because the most actually of the nutrients are found in the skin of the apple. So always eat the skin. Do not peel the apple. Okay, so let's see. Number 4 is, what about the core of the apple? So there's a lot of buzz right now about, I saw something in the news recently, you need to be eating the core of the apple. Now, it is true that there are prebiotics in the core, more prebiotics and even probiotics in the core of the apple, and the core and the stem, if you just were to eat the whole core, which is obviously really great for your gut health. However, there's a little kind of caveat here that frightens some people, is if you ate an enormous amount of apple seeds, the pips, sometimes known as, or the seeds in the apple, they contain a trace amount of cyanide. Now, before that really scares you, you would have to eat so many apple seeds for that to affect your health deleteriously. So I'll leave that to you, whether you're like, you know what, and a lot of people go, I'd never eat the core, I hate the core of an apple. So if you want to eat the core, it's good for your gut health. If you don't want to eat the core, eat the skin. All right, so let's see. Number 5 is how to store your apples. So when you get your apples at home, I actually prefer apples at room temperature, particularly if I'm buying them in season, in the fall. I just prefer them. Sometimes if you keep them in the fridge for a while, they can get a little bit mealy in the fridge, but it doesn't really matter. Obviously, they're going to last longer in the fridge, so they will break down because you're keeping your apples together and they give off these gases to each other, and when you put them with other fruits as well, and then they will start to ripen very quickly and degrade relatively quickly. So what I do is I get my apples and I don't keep them in a bowl like this. I just have them like this to show you. But I keep them like they're little precious jewels. I keep them separated on my counter. And I do that actually with a lot of my fruits, particularly fruits like avocados. I don't have them all together. Because they tend to ripen a little bit more slowly if they're all separated. And then the other thing that's really important is if there's one apple in the barrel, a spoiled apple ruins the barrel, so to say, but it actually does. Because if one of your apples has a bruising or some damage or a tiny bit of rot in it, it will affect all the other apples too. So top way of storing it to me is separate them and just have them on a counter, or keep them in the fridge, and they'll last a little bit longer. Okay, number 6 is different sort of ways to use and eat your apples. So I love, as I said earlier, I think apples are a wonderful snack. You know, they contain vitamin C, they contain potassium, they contain tons and tons of fiber, they're filling, they're satiating. For me, they're only satiating when in season. Eating apples out of season, I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. But when they're in season, I get really excited, pretty much about any seasonal food, fruits and veggies, to be honest, because in season, it's ripe for the season, it's fall, it's like that's when you eat apples and wanna eat apples. And so they're a wonderful snack, obviously. Slice it, keep this, wash it, even if it's organic, keep the skin on. You could do, those of you on a weight loss journey, as many of my clients are, you don't want to be having gobs of nut butter because it's so high in calories, nut butter. I recommend to my clients that they just have some, gently warmed up, maybe warmed in the oven, sort of very lightly toasted raw almonds, or a couple of walnuts or some seeds, things like that. You can even get dried apples, or you can dehydrate your own apples and make a little trail mix. But if you are having a nut butter, just a little smear on, because it gives it that lovely taste. I love the taste of peanut butter and apple, and some women love almond butter and apple, or you could do a sunflower butter or something like that. You could even, and this is another good little tip for those who are on a weight loss journey, is you can get some peanut butter powder if it's the taste you're after, but you don't want all that extra calories and oil, and you can just sprinkle some along with some cinnamon, delicious Ceylon cinnamon, on your apple slices. So a little bit of peanut butter powder and some Ceylon cinnamon, delicious. And the other thing that I love to do with apples, particularly if some of them maybe it's like, oh, it's got one too many imperfections on it, is I make applesauce. And homemade applesauce is an entirely different thing to bought applesauce. I rarely, if ever, buy store-bought applesauce. But homemade, to me, is the most beautiful, beautiful dessert. And so I like to keep the skin on, because for the reason I've just told you, you can peel it if you want to. And you just pop them in chop them up, pop them in a saucepan with a tiny bit of water. You don't want it too watery. And just let it simmer, let it bubble away. And you can add cinnamon, you can add some raisins, you can add some tart cherries, and keep it chunky. What I do is, if the skin's on, then I use my immersion blender just to blend it up a little bit, because you don't want big pieces of skin. But it's still chunky, you still want texture. And then having that either warm or cold of a full evening with a dollop, for me, a plant-based yogurt, and I make my own soy yogurt, which is so delicious, is the most beautiful, healthy dessert. So hopefully that's given you some great information about the health benefits, or really most importantly, what to do, what you need to know as you go forth. And the next time you go to the grocery store, honestly, have a look at those apples and you'll see, like, oh my gosh, they all are completely uniform. And look at the shine on them. That's the wax on them. And so really go out of your way. It's a really fun thing to do if you carve out time on the weekend to go and find a local seller, or find the different ways that you can source apples that are in season. And finally, challenge yourself to see how many different varieties. Very often when you go to an organic farmer and an organic seller, they'll have many different varieties, and they'll be way beyond the very few varieties that you see. There's very little diversity at the grocery store, right? Isn't there? It's just like your Granny Smith, your Fuji, your Pink Lady, your Gala. That's pretty much it. At my farmer's market, there's one particular seller who I love. She has, I think, maybe 8 or 9 different varieties of different apples, and they all taste quite different. So it's kind of exciting. It's an apple adventure. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, as I regularly do videos on all different kinds of foods. As a board-certified nutritionist, it's my thing. Finding the best way to eat our foods, to keep in shape, to stay in shape, to maintain good shape, and to glow. Because the more of these beautiful fruits and veggies that you eat, it's good for your gut health. Your gut health is, the healthier your microbiome is, you feel better, you're in a better mood, your brain feels better, and literally your skin looks better, your skin glows. So I'm excited to take you with me on this wellness journey. So you don't miss anything, do make sure you subscribe, and I will see you next time.